Crazy Dre Podcast.
Welcome to the Crazy Dre Podcast Show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your boy, Crazy Croc here, the Crazy Dre Podcast Show. Today, folks, I want to talk about MLB, little news, little stuff. Got to start with the Philadelphia Phillies. Got to start with this guy named Bryce Harper. Guess what? The commissioner of baseballs decided to go around the MLB teams and start chit-chatting with players and give them the wants and needs and listen to the guys and wondering what's going on, right? As a commissioner, I guess you're supposed to want to do that, communicate with the players and the teams and the organization that you work for. Ryan Sandberg is his name. And this guy has been with MLB for about 8 years, I think, maybe even 10. I don't know. But come to find out, the commissioner and Bryce Harper got into a little discussion. I wouldn't call it a little discussion. I would say it was a big discussion, and it was a kind of a Bryce Harper little hissy fit. My grandma would call it hissy fit, tantrums and all this stuff. I don't know why he thinks being macho and yelling at people is a macho thing to do. It doesn't get you anywhere in life. Especially if you're a professional player, you're a professional representing a league that is the heart and soul of America, MLB, baseball. One of the greatest sports in the world. Just because you can't throw the ball down the middle every single time as a fastball. Just can't do it. You have to throw curveball sliders. You got to play mind games with the batter. Batter plays mind games with the pitcher. Everything's got to get involved. Everybody on the field has to play very well. No errors. Hopefully no errors. Bullpen's got to be great. But what are we getting into? We're getting into the contracts of probably MLB in the next couple of years will probably be have a payroll, restricted payroll on every team. And I break it down as a restricted payroll because it's easier to understand that than any other terminology that you can come with. Other leagues have it. The MLB doesn't have it. And this is the biggest problem that we have. We have a problem with a lot of great players like Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal of Detroit Tigers, Skeens is with Pittsburgh Pirates. You have a lot of great players and great pitchers, and these guys are on a minor career payroll team. Obviously, Pittsburgh Pirates is a very low payroll, and I'll get into that in a minute. But when you have players, and then you have major players that go to the Los Angeles Dodgers, you go to New York Mets, you go to New York Yankees, Philadelphia Phillies, Toronto Blue Jays, that's your market, right? The market is the heart and soul of MLB. And you know what? It's not really working because the problem is that you can draft great players, but you can't keep the great players on that team because they'll go and get paid more, which is really bad for baseball. And I'll tell you why it's bad for baseball. Because baseball is a sport that for average people, if your team's not good, you're never going to watch the teams. You're never going to watch the games. You're never going to do it. And if your team is super good, you'll still get a lot of people that won't watch the games, but will keep up with the games because your team's good. Like, for example, I'll use Los Angeles Dodgers. They got Shohei Ohtani. They got Freddie Freeman. They have Mookie Betts. They have all these major players, and I'll tell you the truth, that's not even the most popular team in Los Angeles. It's the Lakers. So majority of the people out there are not going to go to see the Los Angeles Dodgers unless they're in the playoffs or unless you're the guy or the girl that really loves baseball. So when I'm saying this, for example, if you get a team like Pittsburgh Pirates, you're only going to fill the seats every 5 days when Paul Skeens is pitching. Or, for example, Detroit Tigers, if it wasn't for last year and how great they became after August 13 of 2024. Before that, the only good pitcher we had was Tarek Skubal. And Tarek Skubal, would you go to only 41 games? Because if you do the math and if he pitches every 5 games and you have 162, 63 games a year, he doesn't pitch every series that he's going to be at home. So it's probably like 41 games that he may even have a chance pitching at home. But the thing is that when you have only one player on that team that's good, that doesn't fill out the seats, yes, you're going to get television or revenue and all this stuff. But Pittsburgh and Miami Marlins and Tampa Bay Rays and all these other teams that are not even closely anywhere, like Oakland A's, Chicago White Sox, the Oakland A's, which now will be Vegas A's in about a couple of years. No one's going to watch those teams. No one's going to watch those games. Oakland or the A's purposely traded players all because the city of Oakland didn't want to participate in a new stadium. Or that's what I get to understand about that. But going back to Bryce Harper, you can't just go and yell at people because you're afraid of your contract being disrupted after your 13-year contract is up. He signed a 2019 contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, ranging about I don't know how much he's getting paid, but it seems like he's getting paid 13 years, $330 million, and that and a $20 million signing bonus. And to tell you the truth, he's not even going to be that good by the time that hits about 11th or 12th season. So you're just keeping a guy based on his persona of how great he was. Detroit Tigers had that same problem where you had Miggy Cabrera, who was a great hitter, great contact hitter, very likable to the fan base and to everyone else. But in reality, he couldn't do anything after probably the 11th year. He made contact with the ball. He was the light and spirit of the team, but the team really sucked, and he was getting paid like $25 million a pop for the last year or two. And he sucked the whole thing out of everything. Detroit could have been rebuilding those 2 or 3 years that he was in Detroit, that he signed like a 13-year contract. And the same thing is going to happen to Bryce Harper. And what's happening is this. When you don't have a payroll, like let's say Pittsburgh Pirates, Paul Skeens will probably leave Pittsburgh about when his rookie contract is up. And what's happening in baseball and sports in general is that guys come and go, but they don't have a home to represent after their retirement because they moved everywhere. The part of the prestige, the part of the era, the part of the awesome athletic personality is a guy who stayed on that same team for the majority of his career. Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. I know I'm using the Yankees as an example. But, you know, if you go to basketball, you go to like Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons. Magic was with the Lakers. You want to create that dynasty, that aura of that team. Boston Celtics had that with Larry Bird. It would never make sense to have Larry Bird to play with the Lakers, even if Magic and Larry at the end of their career liked each other. It would not be a good marketing gig. And that's what's happening when baseball. Marketing gig isn't working. Having Bryce Harper uh, 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 go from the Washington Nationals, he was drafted there. Juan Soto was drafted by Washington Nationals. Imagine if they had a payroll that was restricted and Bryce Harper decided to stay in Washington, and then they drafted Juan Soto. and then they drafted maybe a couple of uh, decent pitchers with a good bullpen. You would have won like 3 or 4 World Series. That's what you would have done. And that's how you create dynasties. That's how you create the aura of a franchise team that people can look back on and say, remember that 2015, 2014, 2017 Washington Nationals, how great of a team that was. They were awesome. They were the best team, the best players. And when Bryce Harper, if he stayed with the Washington Nationals, if he retired in 2027 or whatever, he would have he would have retired as a as a historical image for the Washington Nationals. But now he's with the Philadelphia Phillies. And nothing to say against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a great city for sports. Uh, their their fan base is a little hoo-ha, obnoxious, based on every team in that place, in that town. But in reality, that's how you create dynasties. That's how you create this aura of this uh, magical seasons. If Detroit Tigers would have won the World Series in 2012 and 2006, we would have 2 more championships. But that was not based on payroll. That was based on bad uh, uh, infield fielding by the pitchers of Detroit Tigers. That's kind of where they kicked themselves in the butt. But you have baseball when 1995, I remember 1995, baseball went on strike. And my dad was a huge baseball fan. And he taught me a little, he coached me in Little League Baseball, um, and everything else with it. But when that strike holdout happened in 1995, it was the end of baseball for my dad. The heart and soul of baseball went right out the window. And what saved MLB was steroid era with Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa hitting home runs like they were doing. I don't know what they were doing. They're just hitting home runs. But that's basically why Roger Clemens and A Rod and all those guys are not in the Hall of Fame, because they had to take steroids to make baseball popular again. And I wouldn't be surprised in that era if the commissioner at that time knew they were doing steroids, but they needed views, and they needed views very, very, very fast, and they needed it. So I think when Bryce Harper, next time you think about Bryce Harper, think about this. He's not really protecting MLB. He's protecting himself. He's protecting major players. It doesn't matter if it's Juan Soto. It doesn't matter if it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from Toronto Blue Jays. It doesn't matter. It matters that the top prospects who are making the big bucks are protected. And that's not really, that in itself isn't going to protect baseball. Baseball won't survive if you only protect guys like Bryce Harper. Because as a baseball fan, you know what I would do as a baseball player and the coach of the other team with Bryce Harper? I would just walk him, or I would just hit him in the hands maybe every 4 times at bat, just to get him off the plate. And that's something that baseball doesn't do much anymore. Yes, a couple of days ago, Arizona Diamondbacks, Suarez, who is looking to be traded, he got hit in the hand, but that was accidental. But guys like Juan Soto and guys like Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Bryce Harper, sometimes you just have to hit those guys and just get them off the plate. But MLB doesn't want that to be part of the game anymore. But that's how you used to protect the plate as a pitcher. And you made sure that the hitter respected that. Now, you didn't need to hit them every time, but you would come in close. Maybe you get a bad eye too by the hitter. Maybe the pitcher would give you back the bad eye or whatever. But that's how you protect the plate. But they don't do that anymore. But what I'm going to tell you this, folks, MLB does need to reconstruct the payroll. And I think one of the best things to do is put a limit on payroll, a salary cap on that. They need to. They just need put a salary cap because you just don't want teams and players to bounce around from one team to the next. That's not what baseball is about. It's not really about what sports is about. It's about building a team, building a commodity of players that will work together. That even if they don't like each other off the field, they're going to work together to win the World Series or to win the NBA Finals or to win the Stanley Cup. And that's what you're going to remember more of that. Then you'll remember winning in a World Series more than you will remember how much Bryce Harper got paid in 2025. You're going to remember who's going to win the World Series in 2025. You're not going to remember how much Soto is going to get paid or Otani got paid in 2025. So MLB does have to do that. Uh, so I'm sticking with Ron Manfred with this. So if you enjoy this, let me know. Come back, MLB baseball news just for today. And I have other news to talk about, and I'll be right back with this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get it going to the Chicago Cubs. Sad news out in Chicagoland. Ryan Sandberg, the great Ryan Sandberg, has passed away of prostate cancer. Uh, just a really kind of sad news, but I have to talk about the Cubs just because I grew up watching the Cubs. The Cubs was a team that I just kind of enjoyed to watch from the 1980s. WGN in Grand Rapids was always in Grand Rapids, Michigan, was always on our network. For some reason, WGN was always there. We always were able to watch the games during the day, especially during the summers where there was nothing to do. Even if I went to the cottage, we would watch the Chicago Cubs game. And this guy, Ryan Sandberg, was on TV. And it was kind of like what I was saying before. People are going to remember you as a player, not because of your contract, but because of your great play or your resilience of your passion for the game. And this is something that I would say about Ryan Sandberg had. He had the passion for the game. He was a very well hitter, very well second baseman, one of the best second basemen of his time, and that's why we love baseball. We love baseball because a guy like this, who was traded from the Philadelphia Phillies, ironically, I'm talking about Bryce Harper earlier, gets traded to the Cubs and then becomes the Cubs kind of face of the Chicago Cubs, and people remember him for that, not how much money he made or whatever reason that he opened his mouth up about politics or anything, because there was nothing to talk about back in the day. Players didn't have to talk about that. Players just talked about sports. Players talked about their teams. Players supported their teams. Players went through bad times, good times through their career. Sometimes they were really bad. The Cubs didn't win the World Series by 1984. We should talk about his '84 season MVP. He bat 314 with 200 hits, 36 doubles, 19 triples, 19 home runs, 84 RBIs. That's baseball. That's what people remember him for. I mean, like this. The first time the Cubs got into a postseason was 1984 in that era since 1945. and Sandberg's day, they created a Ryno Sandberg day. Ryno is his nickname. Uh, uh, it was June 23rd of 1984. He hit back-to-back home runs to tie the game against uh, uh, Bruce Sutter of the Philadelphia Phillies. So that is something. That's just something that you have to like remember about this guy. That's what people remember. I mean, this this guy is why I'm a Cubs fan. This guy is why I watch the Cubs. This guy. There's Sean Dustin. Yes, there's Andre Dawson. Even Tim Raines played for the Cubs, I think, at one point. Sammy Sosa was a reason why, but it turned out to be because of Ryan Sandberg. Ryan Sandberg was that guy that when I was at home and the Detroit Tigers weren't on, and it was a day game, because that's all they did during the time during the 80s and the 70s. The Cubs played during the day because they didn't have no lights. Okay, they put in the night light movement in the late 90s, 2000s, and something like that. But that's why we watch baseball. That's why I watch the Cubs. So thank you, Ryan Sandberg. Thank you for your legacy. Uh, it's a good note to talk about men's health too. Is that you're never too macho to check in and with your doctor. You're never too lazy not to do it. I don't want anyone to pass away with any pain. But Ryan Sandberg died with his dignity. He really just uh, respected the idea of how he was going to die, and he did everything he could to try to keep himself alive with chemo. But he had a positive note. He had the way that baseball players should be represented is this guy. This is how you should represent the way that you go out, not just with life, but just in the professional league. Uh, there you go, folks. Thank you, Ryan Sandberg. Thank you, the Chicago Cubs, for the WGN era on TV in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Uh, but if you like listening to the podcast, please follow. Um, I'm on I'm on YouTube. I'm on Patreon. I'm on Spotify, and I'm on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download the podcast. Cheers, love, and I'm out of here.